Action Network's daily show, 3 Eastern, here on a Wednesday, February 7th. We are 4 days away from Super Bowl 58. A lot to get to on the show today. Patrick Everson, feet down in Las Vegas. He is going to tell us what the counter has been taking so far at the site of the Super Bowl. Bryan Fonseca is also going to join us. He has an angle in the NBA tonight. We're going to start NBA. The trade deadline is tomorrow at 3 Eastern. Some new faces and new places already prior to the deadline. Some notable names. Terry Rozier suiting up for the Miami Heat. He's back in action this evening. You've got the Knicks and Raptors switch of OG and RJ Barrett. Pascal Siakam, an efficient shooting night last night for the Indiana Pacers. He, of course, used to be in Toronto, and Kyle Lowry was on the other end of the deal with Terry Rozier. So Lowry in Charlotte for the time being. We welcome in two of our very best at Action Network who cover the NBA, Matt Moore and Jay Money. Fellas, good to talk to you here on a Wednesday, day before the trade deadline. Matt Moore, I'll ask you first because that's the topic right now in the NBA. Deadline, All-Star break. It's that weird, grinded out time of the NBA schedule. People are just trying to get to the break, but this is an important day tomorrow. Why do teams trade, first and foremost? Contenders, pretenders, teams out of it, and which teams do you see are in position to make a deal ahead of tomorrow's deadline?
Yeah, so it's actually a more interesting question that seems on the surface. Most people be like, well, because they want to get better and they want to win a title or they want to move money or their player hates them. Like those are the normal answers to these kinds of questions. But what you should understand is that executives almost never move from positions of weakness. So all these teams where it's like, oh, but they're spiraling. Everything is terrible. They're under 500. They're way below expectations. Executives don't want to trade in those instances because they don't have leverage and the other executives they deal with know it. So their odds of coming out with a good deal are very, very low. What they do often do is they will deal from positions of strength. So if they see an opportunity to actually make a run, these teams that are in the middle at the top, that's the teams that are always looking to try and improve. And if you want proof of that, look at the Knicks. The Knicks made this big deal for OG Anunoby, and they've been phenomenal over this stretch. They are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference since making that trade. Even with Anunoby's been out with injury, it's working out great for them. But they're still canvassing the market, trying to find upgrades because they see an opportunity with Jalen Brunson, with this core, with what the roster looks like together. You're seeing the same thing in Minnesota, where Minnesota, top of the Western Conference, they're still canvassing. They've been in talks for Tyus Jones over the last few weeks. So they're still looking for upgrades. That's the type of teams that are looking to upgrade. That's one of the reasons why I'm skeptical of the Lakers being able to find anything, is because the Lakers, everyone knows they're up against it. Like everyone knows the situation that they're in. And so the Lakers are basically hoping that the Atlanta Hawks bail them out by giving them DeJounte Murray for nothing, because it started with the Hawks being like, well, clearly we need Austin Reeves back. And the Lakers being like, well, and then Lakers eventually trying to sell them like, look, D'Angelo Russell's really important to us. And if you're the Hawks, why are you doing business there? So one of the things to keep in mind tomorrow is keep an eye out for the teams that have an opportunity that are playing well. Those are the teams I think the executives can afford to be more aggressive versus some of these teams where you may feel like, well, they got to do something. The answer to that is oftentimes, no, actually, they don't.
Mm-hmm. And you connected two teams that are in the play-in discussion, Atlanta in the East, Lakers in the West, trying to climb out of that play-in hole to make an actual postseason spot. So there's what we think will actually happen, and then what you might want to see happen. And Jay, I'd like to get your thoughts on one of to Matt's point, a contender, top of a conference that could get better.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's all about maximizing your opportunity to win a championship. Like right now, it's almost like baseball. Like, all right, we have a window. Let's try to get it done now. Let's try to win a championship or go as deep as we can in the playoffs right now. That's why teams like the Pacers got Pascal Siakam, and teams like the Knicks went and got OG Anunoby. But the Wolves sit at the top of the Western Conference right now. I'm right there with Matt. I would love to see them get a point guard, a backup point guard that can come off the bench, that can give them more defense, more offense as well. I mean, they have Jordan McLaughlin, but Tyus Jones will really take them to another level. We saw him do it in Memphis the past few years. Whenever Ja Morant was out, the Grizzlies didn't miss a beat because they had Tyus Jones. Now, he's over there in the Wizards right now. They're just not serious about playing basketball. So free Tyus Jones. I would really love to see the Minnesota Timberwolves get a strong backup point guard. I really think that would take them to another level. And also the Phoenix Suns as well. We know this team can score with the best of them. I mean, they can put up 130 points any night, but they're still like one or two pieces away, like good wing defenders or more size down low. Because I mean, really, other than Nurkic, they don't really have a ton of size or good defense out there. So I think there's a few key pieces for a couple of teams that could possibly go really far in the Western Conference. I really like to see the Wolves get Tyus Jones, and I really like to see the Suns get some more defense and size.
Matt, we hit on Tyus Jones last night on NBA Bet Stream, and we discussed, just explain to the viewers how Jones could fit in with Naz Reid, Alexander Walker. How does he fit into that mix? Possibly.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fit there because one, it helps alleviate some of their concerns with Mike Conley and trying to figure out an extension offer for him long term. But the other thing here is with Tyus Jones, you've got a really stable second unit. Naz Reid's one of the most impactful bench players in the league. Adding Jones, who's a capable defender and a very low mistake guy. That's the real big key here, is if you can just have another guy that you know you can put on the floor and stagger with the rest of those starters, and they have a really good starting group who's low mistake, that just boosts things. Because you've seen the turnaround with Mike Conley and how good they've been with Conley on the floor. Jones provides a lot of opportunity there.
Okay, Matt, same question to you. What moves do you want to see? You hit on two teams already. So what do you want to see happen?
So I do want to see the Hawks go ahead and make some moves because they've been delaying the inevitable. It's been apparent to everybody, the worst kept secret in the league is that they want to move on from Clint Capella, and then Onyeka Okongwu is their future at center. He's been playing great this season. Capella's had a pretty good season as well. They need to go ahead and pull the trigger on that. More than a DeJounte Murray move, they need to make that type of a trade. They've taken offers for AJ Griffin, a promising second-year player who's lost a spot in the rotation under Quinn Snyder. I do think it's worth exploring looking at DeJounte Murray. They need a new direction, and so I do think that the Hawks should pivot and start making trades for the future. That doesn't mean trading at a low point, because these trades are not built for them to try and get back into contention, but they should look to try and reshape the roster and get it to a place where it's back to the competitive level that it was in 2021. I'll also mention the Lakers here, because the Lakers are going to try and get through this deadline. It seems all indications are that unless the Hawks just give up, and maybe they will, the Lakers have been lucky there a couple of times, but the Lakers seem like they're content to just go through the rest of the season with D'Angelo Russell and this roster without Jared Vanderbilt. And I'm sorry, I know that they made a run in March last year after the trades, but that doesn't look like it's happening again. And you're wasting a season of LeBron when he's been absolutely phenomenal. And it's a real disservice, I think, to James at this point in his career, with him still playing so well, to not pursue it more intently. And I understand the Lakers' concerns long-term about not wanting the franchise to be at the absolute bottom when LeBron leaves. But guess what? You might have to be like all the other teams and just accept that. One more thing, as far as what Jay noted with the Suns, keep an eye on Phoenix, because they're exactly the type of team that not only is in that position to trade from a position of strength, but they've been pretty active in the market. We reported over the weekend, they're the key suitor that, to me, they're the front runner right now for Miles Bridges out of Charlotte. That would give them that size advantage for them, despite his unfortunate history over the offseason.
Okay, very good. Deadline's tomorrow at 3. There is a 7-game slate tonight. Jay Money does have a pick, and one of those contenders in the West, the Clippers, are taking on the Pelicans. Do you have an angle there, Jay? What is it?
Yeah, the Clippers have been absolutely balling. I know it's a little bit scary going up against them. And I will say that Zion Williamson is questionable for this game, so keep an eye on that. But I am going to go with the New Orleans Pelicans here in the first half, +4. This is the second best team in the NBA in the first half. I mean, they absolutely crush in the first half. They're 31-16-1 against the spread in the first half this season. It's good for second best in the NBA. And this is a bad spot for the Clippers here. First game back off of a 7-game East Coast road trip here. They were supposed to run out of gas versus the Atlanta Hawks. They end up getting super lucky in that game. Only one day off of rest with travel as well, traveling over 3 time zones. I think the Clippers might really come out here sloppy in this game, and wouldn't be surprised if they lose the game outright, to be honest with you. This is also 8th game in 13 days for the Clippers. We know that they're a little bit of an older team. It's just not the same when you have a older team coming home from a long road trip rather than a young team here. So give me the Pelicans in the first half +4. And like I say, Zion Wilson is questionable here, but I'm expecting him to play. So give me Pelicans in the first half. Fly, Pelly, fly.
Okay, so just to clarify for the viewers, is that a no play if Zion's out?
I still like it. I just feel like it's worth it may be worth wait. Obviously, I mean Zion is one of the best players in the league, but if he's in or out, I don't care if he's in or out. Give me Pelicans in the first half here.
Okay. You'll probably get a better number too, I'd imagine, if he is out, right? So, but it makes sense for the argument for the Clippers coming off a long trip and they're rolling, but they've been rolling really well. They are human, I think. That cast of characters. And before we go, Patrick Everson standing by in Las Vegas. It is Super Bowl 58. The Chiefs are playing, and what you got there, Matt Moore? Oh, very good. You want to spend a quick minute here on why the Sharps don't have it right, and you're going to back your Kansas City Chiefs?
Brandon, it's a story we know all too well. We've seen last week,
all too well,
the Chiefs were the team that were the underdogs versus the Ravens. And in the Action Network app, we saw the Ravens take sharp signals and that line moved in their direction. Once again, because of all the bad blood that there is for this Chiefs team and how popular they are, we're seeing the Sharps once again moving this line back towards the San Francisco 49ers. Despite the fact that if we look at this season, all the Chiefs offensive struggles that everyone's talked about, well, the Chiefs offense isn't good. The Chiefs offense isn't good. I kept saying the one thing that would change it is if the receivers did this funny thing called catching, and they're actually catching the football now. So, like, I'll just ask you, do you really want to be on that side? Do you really want to be against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? Do you really want to be there? No, you belong with me, okay? There is a blank space where the Super Bowl trophy will go, and it belongs in Kansas City. It's going to be a cruel summer once again for the Niners, and I understand all those weapons that they've got. They have a lot of style over there, but regardless, you need to not fall for the sharp signals. You need to be on board. I hate to be the anti-hero here, but you need to be with the Chiefs this weekend in the Super Bowl.
Did Brandon Anderson write this for you and then you decided to recite it? Because that sounds like something Brandon penned.
I'm a girl dad, Brandon. This is in my blood.
Okay. Matt Moore, I feel like I've had some of the best rants in my history on this show with you. It's usually about the Nets and Jacques Vaughn and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. But in this case, it's about Super Bowl 58.
And it works out pretty well. Brandon, that's karma.
Oh, all right. Very good. Matt Moore, J Money. Follow them for their NBA coverage in the Action app, actionnetwork.com. Enjoy all the hoopla leading up to the deadline tomorrow, fellas. And thanks for stopping by GDD.
I'm going to go shake it off.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, Brendan, thanks for having me on this afternoon. Sorry for all the technical issues. Coming from Radio Row here at the Super Bowl, literally right across the street from Allegiant Stadium. Patrick Everson here. Let's just give you a quick rundown of what's going on with the game at this moment. Now, the question posed was, do we think this number is going to move at all? Do we think 49ers money is going to start coming in? And I talked to Tristan Davis at BetMGM. He's a trader with BetMGM nationwide. And here's what he had to say. He said, I have seen enough to suggest that Chiefs money will continue to outweigh 49ers money, particularly on the recreational side of things. He noted that he wouldn't be shocked to see sharp money come in on the Niners if Chiefs money pushes this line back down to -1.5 Niners. But he thinks it'll be Niners -2 by game time. Now, that said, the Niners do continue to attract the larger bets on this game. John Murray at the Superbook told me on Saturday that the large majority of big dollar plays are on the 49ers. And the two largest bets reported so far on the Super Bowl, both at Caesar Sports, have been on the 49ers on the money line. $1 million at -120, $500,000 at -125, and that $500,000 was reported earlier today. Hat tip to my good friend Ben Fox. Now, moving along to MVP, there's been a lot of chatter about Sam Darnold MVP liability. The thought process being, well, what if Purdy gets hurt during the game and Darnold comes in and plays superhero and rescues the San Francisco 49ers? At BetMGM, Sam Darnold wasn't even posted on the MVP odds board until after the Niners won the conference championship game, Brendan. He opened at 300-1. He's still at 300-1. But BetMGM trader Christian Cipollini said the book is taking a fair amount of bets on Darnold, and BetMGM has a high liability on him because of that high price point. Again, 300-1, so it doesn't take much to create liability. But again, Darnold's odds also haven't moved at all either. They're not moving off of that liability. And generally speaking, BetMGM has liability on almost every player who's beyond the top three on the board, which is Mahomes, Purdy, and McCaffrey, because liability is going to stack up quickly at those longer odds. Offensive lineman MVP, there was a question about that. Let's go there. BetMGM and others covered all their bases on the extensive list of potential MVP winners, and that includes offensive linemen. But Christian Cipollini said there have been very few bets and at very small amounts of money on any offensive lineman to win MVP. So they're not too concerned about that. And then moving along, you can't avoid this, the Swifties effect, the Travis Kelce props and so forth. Here we go on this. It's interesting to note that multiple odds makers don't want to state with certainty that it's Taylor Swift impacting the Travis Kelce props. But I think we all know what's going on here. Personally, I think it's a very safe assumption to make. Regardless, Tristan Davis, again with BetMGM, said Kelce is definitely the worst outcome for the book in MVP betting at the moment. But he noted that's very often the case with Kelce week to week in TD scorer markets. And Christian Cipollini, again at BetMGM, noted Kelce was an issue in these markets in last year's Super Bowl as well. There was no Swifties effect going on in last year's Super Bowl, as we all know. Still, the game is so full of recreational and casual bettors and a lot of first-time bettors. I got to think the Swifties are having an impact here. And again, at BetMGM, the worst outcome for MVP, the biggest liability for BetMGM on MVP is with Travis Kelce. So there you have it, a good little rundown there, Brendan. Hopefully that'll work for you. Best to everybody at the Action Network and Green Dot Daily. For Vegas Insider from Radio Row at the Super Bowl, I am Patrick Everson.
Circle back to the association. The Miami Heat laying 8 tonight at home. Second night of a back-to-back. They take on Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs. San Antonio with the rest advantage coming in, and the people like Wemby and the Spurs +8, 51% of the bets. However, the money is coming in on Miami, so do with that what you will. We welcome in Bryan Fonseca of the Action Network. I've just been trying to practice saying your name, and I thoroughly enjoy it, to be completely honest. He's one of our NBA contributors. You are on this game tonight, Heat-Spurs. So I gave you the lay of the land as far as the spread. You have an angle on the total.
I like the under. 226.5 right now. We'll see where it is by tip-off. It actually opened at 222, which I found very interesting, and it's been bet upward. I feel like that may come down a point or two before tip-off, but I grabbed it at 226.5. Look, the Heat hit a lot of unders, and coming off a back-to-back where they beat the Orlando Magic 121-95 last night, the Heat have 9 unders in 14 games this season with a rest disadvantage. The Spurs are 6-4-1 to the over with the rest advantage. We haven't seen the Spurs since Saturday, so they're going to have a couple days rest advantage here, which is why people are probably taking the Spurs to cover. Also, the Heat, 5 straight games, no more than 223 points total, where the Spurs have also not exceeded 225 even, more than 2 of their last 6. So just looking at the trends and things of that nature, and also Terry Rozier, which, you know, I'll get to in a second more because I want to break down on him. Just him in particular and what he's been doing, I think has been very encouraging from an offensive standpoint. But this is yet another back-to-back for the Heat and for Terry Rozier in particular. Still like the Heat to win, but I think this goes a little bit under 226.5.
It was a big game for him last night to get the tiebreaker in Orlando, past them in the standings with wins and losses. Miami just got by them. That was a big win for the Heat in a game they got up for. Now you got to play the lowly Spurs next night. You are at home. That does make you wonder. Of course, it is we did trade deadline discussion earlier in the show. It's the day before the deadline, and Miami made their big move in Terry Rozier a few weeks before the deadline. And you've got some analysis on Rozier and how he's fit into the Heat culture.
Terry Rozier is about to play his 13th game in 22 nights. That is a lot of basketball because if you remember, he was traded and immediately went into a back-to-back. I actually thought he was going to sit the first game against the Memphis Grizzlies. And it's just really interesting, like the usage that he's had. He's clearly playing better. He's more in rhythm now with the offense. He's looking for guys, I think, even too much to some degree. And I think there was a quote that Jimmy Butler said after the game where Jimmy's like, hey, like he doesn't have to worry so much about getting everyone else involved. I can do that. I want to make sure he gets involved because Terry Rozier came in with sort of a passive attitude, not in a bad way, but just like doesn't want to step on anybody's toes, where that team, in order for them to pop, they kind of need him to be himself and be who he's been. So I was looking at just sort of like, am I going to play a under here? But the over-under was at 15.5. If I leaned anywhere with this points prop tonight, I would lean under just because of the volume of basketball that he's played as of late. And I would probably go over on Sunday against the Celtics because the Heat are actually going to have a couple nights off. But this will be Terry Rozier's 3rd back-to-back since January 19th. Okay, that is a pretty short window because he did have one with the Hornets before the trade, and this is going to be his second with the Heat already. And on the volume of games, he has not had more than 2 days rest, or actually, he hasn't had more than 1 day's rest between games since the middle of January. Okay, so it's just been 1 day rest, 1 day rest, back to back, back to back. Like that's just kind of what it's been. So after tonight will be the first time Terry Rozier, one, is able to practice with the Heat because he hasn't even done that yet. They're probably going to practice this weekend, and it'll be the first time that he'll have 2 days off in between games when they play the Celtics on Sunday. So I would probably lean under for Terry Rozier today in terms of scoring, but that's if I bet it at all. It's going to be under or nothing. We'll see if I actually do that. But I might like the over for Sunday after practice, after some more rest, which he needs. And potentially, we'll see if they can even beat the Celtics on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday. It's going to be earlier that day.
He had one of his more efficient nights last night, 18 points, 7 of 12 shooting against Orlando, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Fill in that stat sheet. But Terry Rozier leaning under for tonight's game. Bryan Fonseca of the Action Network covering the NBA. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy the basketball during a busy football week.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime.
Remember, any picks we give out here on Green Dot Daily, you can easily reference by following, you guessed it, Green Dot Daily. In the Action Network app, we keep track so you don't have to. That is going to conclude our Wednesday show here on Green Dot Daily. Brendan Glasheen filling in for Maria Marino. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here again, same time, 3 Eastern, here on Thursday on the Action Network app, as well as the Action Network YouTube page. You all have an excellent rest of your Wednesday. Goodbye.